Okay, so trust your gut. That's good to know. Yeah.
And your medical professional.
And your medical
Together, we
together, yes. Welcome back to the Science of Sun Safety with dermatology physician Dr. Danny Mansour. So our third headline, the sun-worshipping dancer diagnosed with skin cancer reveals the warning sign everyone should know. So, Danny, is there an ultimate warning sign that everyone should know?
Yeah, so it's funny. In dermatology, we have something called the ABCDEs of melanoma. And although we say it's for melanoma, I think the most important one, which I'll touch on at the very end, actually applies to kind of all types of skin cancers. So A stands for asymmetry. So if you were to see a new spot on your body that's a bit asymmetrical, if you were to cut it in half, one side doesn't really look like it could be the mirror half of the other. That's something that you might want to just bring up with someone, just bring to medical attention. It doesn't mean it is for sure a cancer. It just means, point it out to someone, just so a medical provider, a professional, just so that they can check and reassure you or refer you if needed. B is for border. So things that have very jagged, irregular, hazy borders. Those are other things that you want to, that's another thing that you want to look for when you're trying to assess, a new spot on a body or a part, something on your body that's been changing. C is for color. So it's not necessarily how dark the color is, but having more than one color. A little bit of brown, a little bit of black, maybe darker brown, lighter brown, maybe even a little bit of red. That's something that's quite a bit atypical, and it's definitely something that you should bring to the attention of others. D is for diameter. So we typically say something that's a spot on your body greater than 6 millimeters, which is roughly about the end of a pencil eraser. Just again, make note of it. It's not the most important, I would say, prognosticator, but it is something because, I'm sure if you looked at your own body, you can find like at least 5 different spots that are greater than 6 millimeters. But just something to be aware of. And then by and far, the one that we say is the most important is E, which is evolution. So change in any of the factors I listed above, change in symmetry, change in size, change in borders, change in color. All those things should prompt you to just bring it up with either your primary care provider or have a referral to a dermatologist, just to double check to make sure everything is in order. Skin can grow that are not cancer, and they might be changing, which is why it's always important to get a professional medical opinion, not just Dr. Google, because you can only go so far, and if anything, you'll probably freak yourself out some more. And sometimes patients will come in and it won't even be them who noticed it. It'll be their partner who noticed, that something is changing on their body. You'll be a parent noticing that something has changed on their child, especially areas that we can't really see, like our back, So change, I would say, is definitely kind of one of the most important things to look out for.
Yeah, that's really good to know. I mean, I read this article and there wasn't really anything that she had said that was her warning sign. She was just like, I'm looking at my wrist and it just seemed weird. My gut told me, and so I went to get it checked.
And you know what? That is it's very interesting you say that, because a lot of the times it's that feeling. It just looks, some people will come in and be like, this just looked odd to me, or it looked different, it looked weird. Even if it ends up being totally benign, that should always prompt someone to be like, okay, let's just take a look at this, because, oftentimes people know their body. People know, for the most part, what's new, what's different, what's changing. So that at least warrants someone taking a look at it. Even if it ends up being benign, at least you can reassure someone. But otherwise, you can actually take definitive steps to help someone with that.
Right. Okay, so trust your gut. That's good to know. Yeah.
And your medical professional.
And your medical
together, we
together,
work,
yes.
Right?
It's a team, yes. It's a dream.
Always.
So our next headline actually says, your cancer answers. How can your hairdresser be your cancer hero? So, I mean, this kind of goes back to what you were saying about family and friends also being able to detect. Can your hairdresser actually be helpful in detecting skin cancer?
In some capacity, yes, because they're the ones, I can't see the top of my head really, like I have hair in it. So definitely, if you have a hairdresser or hairstylist or anyone who might notice something on your scalp, it's not necessarily a mayday, 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 but you might want to bring it up, like I said, to a medical professional who can actually have a closer look at things and either, just better inform you about what's going on. For places that are harder to see for us, there definitely are roles of other people in your life who might notice things and prompt you to go take a look at that a bit more closely with a medical provider.
That actually makes me wonder, how often should we be checking ourselves or checking our loved ones for signs?
Yeah, it's a bit different on the person, of course. So, people who do have a known history of a previous skin cancer, whether melanoma or otherwise, we often might advise them to check a bit more frequently and sometimes a bit more regularly for certain patient populations who tend to have lots and lots and lots of skin cancer. Typically, people who have some form of what we say immunosuppression. So whether they're transplant patients, whether they're on medications that suppress their immune system, these people tend to sometimes, depending on the medication and depending on their history, develop skin cancer more often. But in general, if you're someone who has never had any bad history of sunburns, if you've never had any skin cancers in the past, I think it's very fair to just do one check once a year. I think you'll probably be checking more often, right, regardless, because when you go to shower or when you get out of the shower, you'll see your skin. But if you had a history of skin cancer, I think the best thing is to just ask your dermatologist.
Good tips. Things to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And our next headline is, many pathologists agree overdiagnosis of skin cancer happens, but don't change diagnosis behavior. So does this happen, and why should this not stop us from, engaging in early detection?
We have seen over time that the incidence of melanoma, non-melanoma skin cancer in both male and female patients has increased over the last decade, 2 decades. The difference is that the mortality and morbidity from these diseases has stayed relatively the same. And so how can we kind of rectify these two positions? So like I said, on the one hand, we're just better at detecting melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancers and other types of, skin cancers, both from the dermatologist perspective. Patients are a bit more aware of what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that earlier detection, we also don't see people at those later stages where it's really hard to manage and treat, and you've gotten to the point where it becomes challenging. So early detection is always going to be better. There is no harm in having a bit of some form of net of safety or operating with a bit of caution. If I see something that I'm a little bit concerned about, something is a little off for me, I would much rather, and I think the patient would much rather, having that removed, analyzing that, having a dermatopathologist or pathologist look at that to see, yes, it is cancer, no, it isn't cancer. So I think we're all pretty comfortable, and I think patients agree that operating with some degree of caution is okay. Many of the times, patients are the ones who actually feel quite uncomfortable about a spot, even if we reassure them and we say, this looks totally fine. Like, do you really want me to remove it? Like, it's fine. You're going to have a scar. And they're like, nope, I would just rather know and get it out and just feel confident. And we're usually more than happy, depending on what we actually see.
So it's definitely operating on this better safe than sorry. And also, this is really explaining more of why, the rates are increasing, but the morbidity is kind of staying the same. It's not necessarily like, oh, we're overdiagnosing things.
Yeah. I mean, like, we have the technology to be able to detect things a bit earlier. We have the technology to be able to counsel people, and a lot more is available now than was 20 years ago, even just with regard to sunscreen. It's like that we can protect ourselves better as well. So overall, I think things are still kind of headed, like we mentioned a bit earlier, in a positive direction. So it's always better to err on the side of caution overall.
Thanks for tuning in, and thank you so much, Dr. Danny Mansour, for chatting with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see us tackle next. Until next time, don't believe everything you read on the internet.